We're here to help you rebuild.
The first thing I noticed wasn't the pie. It was the loneliness in her eyes. The warm scent of fresh apple pie drifted through the dusty afternoon air, cutting through the smell of horses, leather, and dry prairie grass. I smiled without thinking and tipped my hat toward the quiet woman standing behind the wooden window of a weathered farmhouse. "This pie smells wonderful," I said with an easy grin. She lowered her eyes for a heartbeat before whispering words so soft I almost missed them. "Not as wonderful as you." Those 7 words changed 2 broken lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness can heal hearts, second chances can change destinies, and love often arrives when we least expect it, please take a moment to like this video, comment, "Second chance," share this story with someone who still believes in hope, and subscribe to the channel for more heart-touching Old West stories. The year was 1887, and the endless valleys outside Helena, Montana, stretched beneath towering mountains kissed with snow. Nathaniel Brooks had spent most of his 36 years riding cattle across the frontier. His ranch was small, his hands were rough, and every sunrise felt exactly like the one before it. 3 winters earlier, sickness had stolen his wife, leaving him with silence that echoed louder than any storm. People assumed time healed everything. They were wrong. Time simply taught a man how to carry pain without letting others notice. Nathaniel filled every hour repairing fences, tending horses, and helping neighboring ranchers whenever they needed another pair of hands. He worked harder than anyone because work never asked difficult questions. Work never reminded him that every evening he returned to an empty cabin. One Saturday, after delivering supplies to town, he spotted a faded wooden sign outside a lonely farmhouse that simply read, "Fresh homemade pie." Curiosity drew him toward the porch. The woman inside looked no older than 28. Dark curls framed her gentle face, while a faded blue prairie dress and cream apron suggested she had been baking since sunrise. Despite the warm smile she offered customers, sadness rested quietly behind her eyes. Her name was Abigail Turner. Nathaniel bought 1 pie. The following week, he returned for another. Soon it became a habit neither of them questioned. Every Saturday he found some excuse to pass by the farmhouse, and every Saturday another pie somehow found its way into his saddlebag. The townsfolk noticed. Old frontier towns always noticed everything. Some laughed that the lonely cowboy had finally discovered something sweeter than coffee. Others whispered that Abigail carried too much sorrow for any man to fix. Neither rumor knew the truth. Abigail had arrived in Montana 2 years earlier after losing both parents during a wagon journey west. She inherited nothing except the abandoned farmhouse and an old recipe book filled with her mother's handwritten pie recipes. Baking became her way of surviving. Every crust she rolled reminded her that love could still exist even after unimaginable loss. Business barely paid the bills. Some weeks she wondered whether she would lose the farm before winter arrived. Still, she smiled. Not because life was easy. Because she refused to let heartbreak become her identity. Nathaniel admired that quiet strength long before he admitted it to himself. One afternoon he found Abigail struggling to lift heavy sacks of flour from a wagon. Without saying much, he climbed down from his horse and carried every sack into her kitchen. The next week he repaired the broken porch. The week after that he fixed the leaking roof before the summer storms arrived. Abigail insisted on paying him. Nathaniel always refused. Instead, she packed another pie into his hands. Their friendship grew through simple acts of kindness rather than grand declarations. Autumn painted Montana in shades of gold and crimson. Together they watched leaves dance across empty fields while sharing coffee after long days of work. Sometimes either spoke for several minutes. Silence between lonely people often says more than words ever could. Then disaster struck. A lightning storm swept across the valley one violent evening. Strong winds tore shingles from Abigail's farmhouse while rain flooded her small storage cellar. Flour was ruined. Apples floated through muddy water. Her wood-fired oven cracked from sudden temperature changes. Everything she depended upon disappeared in a single night. Nathaniel arrived the following morning after hearing what had happened. The sight broke his heart. Abigail stood ankle-deep in muddy water trying to save ruined ingredients with trembling hands. For the first time since he had known her, tears finally escaped. Not loud sobs. Just quiet tears of someone too exhausted to keep pretending everything would somehow be all right. Nathaniel removed his hat. Without asking permission, he rode into town. He spoke with the blacksmith, the carpenter, the preacher, the general store owner, and every rancher he knew. Something remarkable happened. People who had barely spoken to Abigail before suddenly arrived carrying lumber, flour, sugar, apples, fresh eggs, nails, blankets, and tools. The blacksmith repaired the oven. The carpenter rebuilt damaged shelves. Children gathered fallen apples. Women spent hours cleaning the kitchen until it shined brighter than before. Nathaniel worked from sunrise until moonlight beside everyone else. Abigail watched the entire town rebuild not only her bakery, but also her faith in people. For years she believed surviving meant facing every hardship alone. Now she realized kindness spreads faster than fear whenever one brave heart chooses to begin. A month later, Abigail's farmhouse reopened. The first morning, customers lined the dusty road before sunrise. Word had spread across neighboring ranches that the valley's finest pies were finally back. Nathaniel arrived last. He didn't want special treatment. He simply wanted to see her smile again. She handed him a warm apple pie exactly as she had months earlier. "This pie smells wonderful," he said with a smile that felt lighter than it had in years. This time Abigail didn't lower her eyes. She looked directly into his weathered face. Softly, almost shyly, she whispered, "Not as wonderful as you." Nathaniel felt something inside him heal that he thought had died forever. It wasn't because she called him wonderful. It was because someone finally saw the goodness he had spent years quietly giving away without expecting anything in return. Winter arrived early that year, blanketing Montana beneath sparkling snow. Nathaniel never stopped visiting. Soon the visits became dinners. Dinners became shared dreams. Shared dreams became a future neither believed they deserved. By spring of 1888, the little farmhouse no longer belonged to loneliness. It belonged to laughter, fresh bread cooling on wooden tables, neighbors stopping by without invitation, and two hearts that understood brokenness better than most. Nathaniel never tried replacing the love he had once lost. Instead, he allowed himself to discover that the human heart has room for gratitude, memories, and new beginnings all at once. Abigail continued baking every morning. Only now she placed one extra pie on the windowsill every Saturday. Whenever a weary traveler couldn't afford food, that pie quietly disappeared into grateful hands before sunset. Nathaniel smiled every single time, because kindness given freely had returned to them 100 times over. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who needs to believe that love can still find us after loss. Before you go, leave a comment with the single word, hope. We'd love to know where you're watching from and what part of this story touched your heart the most. Some people spend their lives searching for grand miracles. Nathaniel Brooks discovered that miracles sometimes arrive wrapped in a warm homemade pie, carried by gentle hands, and spoken through 7 unforgettable words that remind us we are seen, valued, and deeply loved. And in a quiet corner of the Old West, where mountains watched over endless fields, 2 lonely souls proved that the sweetest recipe was never the pie itself. It was kindness shared, hope restored, and love given a second chance.